Getting ready to go here. Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Tuesday. I took a much needed day off. This head cold that I had really kind of knocked me for a loop, but feeling much better today. I'm not at 100%, but I'm getting there. I'm at about 90-ish, and my energy level is high. And we had a very, very interesting overnight and morning as I got a nice surprise snowfall, as you might have seen from the video I ran earlier today, the live stream I did this morning, where I had 6 inches of snow over in central Long Island, and in fact much of Long Island, especially Suffolk County, had a good 4 to 9 inches of snow. Amounts tailed off in Nassau County to on the order of about 2 to 4 inches, and then they tailed off even more. I have a I'm going to put up this link in the chat for you guys, so you can use this. This is actually quite cool. I'm hoping that this works. So just give me a second here, because I seem to be having some problems with it bleeding through. But let's see if I can get this thing to work. But here's the link to it. Again, it's going to be in the chat, and you can go to it later. But if you're for snow information, you could bookmark this, because you can kind of maneuver around the country on a daily basis and see the snow reports from wherever you happen to be. So I will interact here. We'll show you what some of the snow falls were. And let me get close enough so you can see it here. But these are the Long Island snowfalls, and we're talking 8.7 inches in Ridge. Now, the National Weather Service office is not too far from where Ridge is, and they had 8.7 at the Upton at Upton in Brookhaven Labs, which is not too far from where you see Ridge here and you see Manorville, are kind of right. It's just somewhere in between there, let's say. And you can see some of these other amounts: 6.2 near Medford, 7 just east of Mastic, West Hampton 8.7, numbers on the east end 8 inches, Mattatuck, Laurel 7.9 inches, 7.3 in Southampton, Hampton Bays 7.3. Now you start to go into Nassau County and the amounts begin to drop off. We're looking at Melville, that's westernmost Suffolk, at 5.2, Bayville, Oyster Bay 3.8, 2.2 inches when you get into Bayside, Queens. There really wasn't too much there. And in New Jersey, we had Long Branch at 2.9, 2 inches at Brick, 2.8 near, looks like 9 miles east-southeast of Lakehurst, 2.8, Forkhead River at 2.6, Waretown 2.5, down further south, not too much coming out into South Jersey, where they had some snow showers this afternoon, but it looked like much of the snow was really kind of confined to the New Jersey coast east, or maybe just barely west of the Garden State Parkway. There were some coating to 1 inch amounts elsewhere, but very few of them were reported, and you can see some of these other amounts as we go back through eastern Pennsylvania. There were some 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 inch amounts. Here's a 5 inch amounts in Marionville in Pennsylvania. And then you got some amounts as you look around in and around Ohio. You're talking about some 4, 5, 6 inch amounts in and around the Cleveland area. So, it was a fairly interesting little system that moved on through. By the way, some of that snow also extended down through much of the Appalachians, down through West Virginia and into Western Virginia, Western North Carolina. So again, keep this tool handy, because I think it's pretty useful for those of you who like snow. Now, with respect to the pattern going forward, first off, let me just tell you that I think we are going into what are going to be fairly exciting times. for you snow lovers and cold weather lovers. Now, that's not to say that we've got, guarantees anywhere on the horizon here, but I think we're going to have, on the whole, these models, these longer term models continue to be on course with their signals. Colder than average temperatures as being led by the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. This is today's reading, which continues to show it going very negative as we begin that negative descent on Thursday, and then drive down deep into negative territory as we move through the first week of February and beyond. Now, a few changes today. This is, by the way, from the 0Z run of last night, so this may have already changed based on what the ensembles did during the daytime. But the Pacific North America Index yesterday was shown to be very strongly positive all the way through. Now, kind of straddles between slightly positive and slightly negative. Let me just remind you that you're going to see volatility in these indices because they are based on the GFS ensemble. So as the GFS changes to some degree, you're going to see these indices adjust. Another big change from yesterday was that the NAO yesterday was being signaled to actually go neutral to slightly negative, and now it's back to being mainly positive. I would just treat the North Atlantic Oscillation the way we've been treating it up until now, which is really that it's no factor in the long-range pattern until it becomes one. So until we have some kind of short-range event that drives it down to a negative territory, we will deal with the implications of that if and when it happens. The important thing is the consistency of that EPO going strongly negative. That has been steadfast now for the last week or more, and that has not changed. The other thing is that somebody asked the questions like, why use the teleconnections because of the fact that they're so volatile and they change every day. Well, they are going to change with how the models change, and I understand that. But what you should look at them, because at least if you get the signal, the sign that one of those indices is being consistent, that could at least throw you a clue. And the EPO is giving us that, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation Index being consistently negative, which is a colder than average signal for the eastern part of the United States. But the other important thing to look at is the change. When we spike up from, say, strongly negative to positive, like we're doing on February 2nd and 3rd, and going into this weekend, sometimes when you see these strong spikes, that it could be, a sign of something happening somewhere. That's a big pressure change, going from lower pressure to higher pressure in a very, very short period of time. So you kind of want to pay attention to where these spikes are occurring, and where you see these indices, if a number of them are spiking, that could be pointing to some kind of a storm development. So, you want to pay attention to it. No indicator you ever use, whether it's the teleconnections or any of the models that you look at, no one thing is going to be 100% foolproof. There's no real magic bullet here. And in fact, just with what happened yesterday, I want to kind of go back for those of you aspiring young forecasters and the dangers of relying so heavily on what models are telling you and not paying attention to what is happening in front of you on the radar last night, which was loaded. I want to go back. I want to pull up the NAM model run, and I'm going to go very tight into the eastern part of the U.S. because this was a problem all weekend, as the short range models were not very good at all with what transpired with regards to our weather here. And let's see if we can start this from the beginning. Now, this was the mid-cycle run, I believe, from last night, which finally caught on, the NAM did, to the fact that it was actually snowing. But if we go back one model run before that, hang on, let me make sure I got the right ones here. 6Z, 0Z. I believe. So we're going to go to 18. This is Monday afternoon's model run, which only then finally started brought some snow in here for Monday night into Tuesday morning, and you can see it here on this. I'm just trying to go back to the cycle run where it didn't really catch it, and here's the 18Z. Why is it shifting on me? I'm sorry. Let me just get this. I want to try to get this. I want to because I think this is really important. Okay, so this was the 0Z run. This was actually last night's run, right at the point where this was all getting underway, and I mean it was insane in terms of the fact that it had, the radars over New Jersey and Long Island at this point were loading up rapidly, and the NAM really had next to nothing there, and you can see where it kept all the snow. You got to remember where you got the westernmost edge of that blue is where there was 7-8 inch amounts of snow, and you had most of the rest of Suffolk County and into Nassau County where there was every bit of 3 to 7 inches showing nothing, and nothing along the New Jersey coast. This is the run right as the event is getting underway, and again, this is why you got to, if you looked at the radar at the time, you would have seen that the coverage on the radar did not match at all with what was going on. The big winner last night, in my view, in my opinion, was the HRRR model. The HRRR model last night kind of, was very, very consistent. I don't think it's going to go back far enough for us to look at, because this model does come out every hour, so that's going to be hard for us to do. This is what it's doing right now as some snow showers are getting out of the way. It only goes out 18 hours. But you'll have to trust me on this, that the HRRR model did very, very well with this. The problem is that the HRRR has done horribly for so many months that who trusted it? But it really was one of the only ones that did. Even the RGEM model had problems all day yesterday and did not give a good picture of what's happening going forward. So why don't we take a look at the upper air pattern and what is going to be happening. We're coming into the end of January. So this thaw pattern that we've been in for the last almost 2 weeks is pretty much done. And you can watch how the vortex in Canada just kind of strengthens as we move through the rest of this week and through this weekend. And notice that we have a blocking high. There's a high sitting up over northwest Alaska and extending over into easternmost Russia, easternmost Siberia. And that is holding everything in place. That vortex is just going to be dropping troughs down and rotating around and around over the next 15 days or so. And this is pretty consistent from run to run. Now, there will be some varying degrees in terms of the strength, but the overall pattern is ridge in the west, trough in the east, weather systems rotating around. And I think what we're going to be seeing here are systems coming through every 2 or every 3 days or so with the threat for some snow. I don't think that there'll be anything on the order of huge, okay? I think we're going to be dealing with moderate weather systems that'll be moving across the country and impacting our weather. I don't see there being much room for anything major in a pattern like this unless we get some kind of deep powerhouse to drop southward, and unless we suddenly get maybe some blocking to developing in the Atlantic. I think we're going to just be seeing more of what we have been seeing. And the flavor seems to be that we get these cold shots, you get a cold front that comes through, and then you get a wave to develop on the front. And the first of these is going to come on Thursday. Let me punch up the wider eastern view, and we'll go back to the beginning, and you'll see it here. Here's our high moving off the southeast coast. Now, there's a cold front that's approaching here. This is for late Thursday, Thursday night into Friday. There isn't really too much with this. This was something that models were being very aggressive on back a number of days ago, and as we've gotten closer and closer to reality, it's backed off, backed off, backed off. And I think what we're going to watch for is if there's a wave that develops on that front far enough to the south. Right now, based on what I'm seeing, you'll probably get some kind of wave development maybe near Cape Cod. Maybe there's a changeover to some snow showers after the front goes by, but it should not amount to too much. A shot of cold air follows, and here comes the next front and wave. For Sunday, the front goes by, and then you can see there's a wave on the southern end in the Gulf states that the GFS takes to the Carolinas and then moves out east-northeast. I would suggest that we're going to have to pay attention to this because, once again, what we just saw was a system being shown to be well offshore, and the models, the upper air jet stream pattern with the trough that swings around in the flow, reels it in closer to the coast. We may see the same error again as we move into next week. Then that goes out, and then we have yet another one for, looks like, Wednesday night and Thursday of next week. So I think we're just going to be kind of doing this for the next 2 weeks or so. Shots of cold air. Some of these shots of cold air will be formidable, some a little less so. But in between shots, you are going to get opportunities for snow. This is deep into the long range where you've got brutal cold air coming down into the northern plains and Great Lakes and eventually into the northeast. So, this I think is going to be the signature going forward for the next couple of weeks. Let me now go to Europe because, we've had these, stories going on with all the flooding that's occurred in parts of France and in Paris with heavy rains, which they are going to get another wave of heavy rain here during Wednesday, and I believe some snow. You get that wind coming in up from Greenland, so it looks like there might be some snows for parts of Ireland, Wales, England, and Scotland here for Wednesday. Then after that, looks like another weather front with some rain coming into Western Europe. So nothing especially strong, and going deeper into the long range, we see this is now next week, early next week, some weather systems out in the Atlantic, but it looks like the bulk of this stays out to the west, although there's a strong front that does approach for a week from Wednesday into the British Isles. Looks like some heavy rains with this as it moves on by. But at least from the standpoint as far as France is concerned, let me just back up one more time just to show you. We're getting a fairly decent shot of rain here for Wednesday into Wednesday night. Actually changes over to snow and some of the colder air that comes in, and then a bit of a break, and then maybe another round of showers on Saturday, but doesn't look like anything especially heavy. On to the Canadian Maritimes. And let me bring those, the Maritimes up, because you folks are getting some action from this weather system that just impacted my neck of the woods. So you're seeing some snows over Nova Scotia, and even some sleet and some freezing rain and rain into parts of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland as the low goes up into Labrador. And then as we move toward the end of the week, we get that system for Thursday. That brings some rain and snow Friday into Saturday into Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and then come Sunday night into Monday, looks like low pressure passes by south of Newfoundland. No major storms on the horizon, but you are going to get perhaps your usual opportunities here for rain and snow in the Canadian Maritime provinces over the next couple of weeks. Now, let me just bring up me, and we'll come up full screen. I got to tell you, folks, I've been having, these live streams are a lot of fun when you're feeling well, but when you're not feeling well and you're trying to do this and going for an hour's time, it is difficult. So let me come back to you guys and just give a collectively big hello. Again, check that link out that I put up on the patch. Daniela Yakubov. Weather Service had. I actually did see the. Before I went to bed last night, the Weather Service had less than an inch for Nassau County and westernmost Suffolk, but it had 1 to 2 further east. Obviously, that turned out to be dead wrong. And you yesterday it was again a great example for you young forecasters, and even for us older forecasters too, because we are so model centric now that you needed to realize the fact of what was happening. I went to bed last night. My head was not in the forecast game because of my head cold, but I went to bed last night, and I at about 11 o'clock or so, it was snowing fairly steadily where I was in central Long Island. I already had about an inch on the deck, on the colder surfaces. The streets, the roads were just beginning to get some snow cover to it. The temperature was at 32, 31. But the radar was so loaded at that time. You had precipitation all the way back to the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border from Trenton on southward. The models weren't showing it, and this wasn't stuff that was just aloft either. This was stuff that was that was reaching the ground, that was being reported by the observing stations. So, you got to pay attention to all these things. And these small systems are the ones that wind up surprising. So just you take that as a lesson, okay? Always pay attention to what's going on, and don't rely too much on weather models when it's actually happening. You have to nowcast. And you know what? The nature of weather and the nature of snow is such that you're going to have this happen. All snow forecasts bust for somewhere. Doesn't always match up. You can't possibly match up a snow forecast perfectly. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do when you're trying a snow forecast over a large geography. There's just too much variation in the atmosphere, too much local climatological effects. A wind off where I am, a wind off Long Island Sound, or a wind off the ocean, or in New Jersey, perhaps a wind off the ocean or the bays, could impact snowfall over a matter of miles, or even just a few blocks, for that matter. Let's see. William Huber is bowling in Port Jefferson tonight, and yes, I do feel better. Thank you for asking. I do feel much better. And Daniela didn't rely on the fork models and got the forecast right. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. How did that you got your forecast right? You're good. Okay, Miller Place, 8.5 inches. That's pretty consistent with what's going on. And yes, always smiling. I think some snow back into Spain again. If I kind of looked at it really fast, but I'm guessing that's what you're getting at. And I'm just trying to see. Fairhaven, Mass, for FJ40JJ Love, 6 inches in Fairhaven. I believe that is what you're saying. 5 in Bayport by Jerry Haber. Wayne S says hi, so a hi back to you. 2 to 3 inches in Levittown from Wayne. And just trying to get some other these snow amounts. So you know what? This was, I got to tell you folks, I'm still amazed, by the way. Wherever you happen to be, do a little research for yourself and find out what your average snowfall is for your particular area, because I think you might be surprised at how much it actually is, especially if you're a snow lover, because a lot of snow lovers seem to have this very let's call it a jagged view about what winters are supposed to be like. I have to tell you that I hit a milestone for myself. We have, for me, my snowfall, and Reaver 501, I'm not too far from you. So your average snowfall is just under 32 inches for the entire winter. Okay, I yesterday and this morning with my additional 6, I'm now at 32.2 inches for the winter. Now remember, we still have all of February to go and all of March to go, and even a little bit of April, not impossible. Okay, if we have an average February and an average March and an average April, we should get another 16 inches of snow on top of what's already fallen. Now, by going to 32.2, am above normal above average for this season. This is the 6th consecutive winter, that I am above average. It is also the 9th out of the last 10 winters that I am above average, and I'm pretty representative of central Suffolk County. So this has been the last 18 years, the last 18 winters have been phenomenal with regards to snowfall for areas around Long Island. New York City also above average. Coastal New Jersey as a whole also above average. Now bear in mind that the coast has had a bonanza. There have been a number of areas inland that, well, not so much. The winter so far today, this winter so far is favoring the coast more than it does inland areas. Parts of Northwest Jersey have gotten under 15 inches for the winter. I've gotten double that. And this has actually been a signature for the last 16 or 17 winters. The coast has gotten the most. The inland areas have gotten far less. So this is a very interesting cycle that we seem to be in. I don't know how long it lasts or when it breaks. The cycle from 1970 to 2000 was one of fewer snows, fewer big snowstorms, and most of the areas that got snow tended to be more inland than on the coast, and we seem to have reversed that for some reason. So I would say, be familiar with your geography and your climatology and what your average snowfall is, and you might it might surprise you. I used to keep records, Reaver. I just basically keep seasonal snowfall records. I have them written down somewhere. I used to have them. I had them always on paper when I was young, and then you have kids, you run out of you get distracted, you stop doing them. I used to do them just for the winter time. But I do have a good memory of most years. I just don't remember exactly where I have them, where I've kept my books. Tom Adams got 2.8 inches. Inland areas need some snow to fill up those reservoirs. Last I checked, David, the reservoirs are actually in pretty good shape. There's been enough snowfall in upstate New York in the source regions that the reservoirs, I think normally this time of year are around supposed to be about 85, 86%, and they're pretty close to that. I checked this, I saw some numbers on this just a couple of days ago. Let's see, Mary Adams, there was 3 factors that came together just right. The weatherman here didn't see it coming, couldn't open my door, neighbor helped me out. Lots of laughs. I didn't see that is coming. Glad to see I'm feeling better. Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been kind of tough, but I am feeling better. Tom Adams, you've had 29 so far. March weakening La Niñas are notorious in the Boston area. We're going to watch to see if that has some sort of a trend. I'm kind of liking the fact that we're seeing maybe more activity now going into the month of February. Now we'll see whether that accelerates as we go through the month or not. We've got to get this pattern to kind of get underway with respect to the next couple of weeks to see if it's going to be a bit more active than the stretch from mid-December to mid-January. I'm just trying to I'm just scrolling back to check a couple in case I missed some of your comments. James, NASCAR fan, got 2 inches this morning. in North Belmore. Awesome. Everybody putting those numbers down. James Hines in Kentville, Nova Scotia, 103 inches per season. That's amazing. How much have you had so far? Because you haven't had many big storms up your way this winter so far, but I'm just kind of curious as to how much snow you have seen. Because I know you guys do get some ocean effect over there. I'm just, I'm not always paying as close attention, I guess, as I should be. Only 9/10 of an inch fell in New York City, but even New York City right now is running a bit above average for the whole winter. Okay, but where I am, almost double what New York City has, and I'm about 50 miles east of Midtown Manhattan. Let's see, Franklin Taylor, you've kept records at different times for the last 40 years. Weathermen or watchers stay closer to the outdoor activity without even having to be out necessarily. That's where it'll happen. I agree with you. I do have a very good sense and instinct after years of paying attention and experiencing and watching and then writing down and kind of recalling it in my mind. I have a really, really good sense of what happens, what's going to happen and how it happens, and a good feel for my local forecast area and how weather systems play themselves out. And if you pay attention to those sorts of clues, you wind up really getting a good feel for things in your own local area. Very important to have. Matthew Goodman, we need just one major snowstorm. You remind me, by the way, Matthew, the system in January which produced, the 1 foot plus snows, those 1 foot plus snows were mainly confined to coastal areas. There was, once you got a little bit away from the coast, and not very far away from the coast, amounts decreased rather considerably. So we have not really seen a widespread snowstorm of 1 foot plus that covers many thousands of square miles. It's one that covers, say, most if not all of Pennsylvania, most if not all of New York State, most if not all of New Jersey, the mid-Atlantic states, something that comes up and kind of sweeps up the entire area and goes all the way up through the mid-Atlantic and on up through New England, catching Washington, Philadelphia, New York City, Hartford, and Boston. And let's not forget Baltimore, too, to catch all those big cities. We haven't seen a storm like that, actually. I guess you probably have to go back quite a ways to find one that caught all of them from bottom to top. So we haven't seen one of those types of storms in quite a while. All right, folks, I think I'm gonna end it right here tonight. Thanks everybody for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Reaver 501, how do I keep these things sorted in my head? I don't know. I just, after all these years, it just kind of does it automatically. It's almost, I'm almost robotic with this sort of stuff. Mary Atkins got 10 to 12. Rest of Michigan only got 2 inches. Dry snow. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of cold air coming down your way, and that cold air is going to spread eastward. Reaver, okay, I know, Rich. He does his best. We were talking about this all through the weekend, and it's tough. It was a bust. It was a bust for all of us, for Long Island, and it's not the first time. And I can tell you, it won't be the last. Tom Adams, where was I during the blizzard of '78? Well, I was actually that weekend. I was doing intern work at the National Weather Service in New York, and when the forecast came out with the blizzard warning for New York on that Sunday night, it was my voice on the KWO 35 NOAA weather radio. That was my voice that publicly broadcast the 1 foot plus snows that the Weather Service was predicting. And I know that audio is running around somewhere. The anniversary is coming up, so if I can get my hands on it, maybe I could figure out a way I could probably play it here on the live stream. But I was only 19 years old. 1978, I was 19 years old at the time. So, and then of course I was able to stay at home and watch the whole thing play out. It was a terrific forecast experience, and a very, very exciting storm that lasted 2 days. we had just had a foot to a foot and a half from the snow 3 weeks before on the January 19th, 20th storm, whose anniversary we just passed. And those two storms that year were the biggest snowfalls that we had seen in New York City since the Lindsay storm in 1969. So it kind of broke a snow drought of a lack of major storms that didn't occur from 1970 through the winter of 1976-77, and then we had those two storms in 78. All right, folks, gonna say goodnight at this point. If you want to see what it looked like at my house, check out the live stream in the video library from earlier today, and you can take a look at the snow in my neck of the woods. And we've got website posts going into the long range and the short range on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. Thank you so much for those of you who are new subscribers to my YouTube channel. Welcome aboard. Really appreciate that you're here, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't, so that you can get notifications of when my next live stream is coming up, which is usually once a day, and today happened to be one of those days where I did it twice. Okay, so hopefully by tomorrow I'll be 100% and I can lose the last of this nasaliness that I have. We will see you on Wednesday.